Hi, everybody. Welcome to Soulprint. It is Pendulum Friday. Thank you very, very much for being here. We've got some really good questions, so I'm not going to dawdle, but I do want to just mention a couple of things. The other day on my feed, Legal AF, who I'm sure many of you probably know about, there was a woman on there who had written, they were interviewing a woman who had written a book. It's just out called Without Precedent. And it is sort of the story, if you will, of how exactly John Roberts ended up on the Supreme Court and sort of the way he was able to manipulate and maneuver to get there. It looks like it's could be an interesting read. Now, speaking of interesting reads, I was given this book by Dr. Jane Yip, who wrote it. Okay. We talk a lot about the divine feminine energy, but I'm not sure that by and large we understand what that means or how it impacts us or how that unfolds. This book is, first of all, you should know I am a voracious reader. I read fast and I read a lot. This book took me a really long time to get through because every chapter, every page had some healing, some insight, some clarity. It's really remarkable. So, in a nutshell, what it is another prophet gets sent down to the planet, but this time it is a woman, hence the title, the prophetess. And she brings messages on a vast, vast variety of topics. The book has a lot of chapters. I'm just going to tell you some of them on education, on children, on family, on marriage, wedding vows, houses, eating and drinking, buying and selling, on money, crime and punishment, um, illness and health, on government, um, surviving collapse, on beauty, on and on. And every one sort of has something in it that you can grasp and think about and process. It is not telling you that this is the end all be all. This is you know, a book of messages, if you will. But they're really interesting. And I encourage, particularly women who are trying to make sense, honestly, of their life or of what going forward looks like, how we actually embrace and enact that divine feminine energy, because it's coming, it's here, and for a lot of us, it's a matter of okay, well, now what do I do with it? I have the name of it, but how do I make that be an important part of my life? So you can get this on Amazon. It's a prophetess, and it is written by Dr. Jane Yip, YIP. She, by the way, is a poet, a philosopher, a healer. She has a background in neuroscience. Okay, this is a very wise, gentle woman, and I encourage you to check it out if you can, because I think that there's a lot in there that can give us clarity, hope, direction, those kinds of things. And certainly the time and energy that went into writing this, I think it is a profoundly important novel. Here we go. Let's get started, shall we? For new people, thank you very, very much for being here. Welcome to Soulprint. I hope you enjoy our community. Um, my pendulum reacts very quickly and very fast if you're new here. Um, it's on a short, sort of rope. And so it just moves faster. I mean, all of you can try this, right? If you have a really long pendulum, shorten it and see if it doesn't sort of increase, the response time. In any case, when the pendulum goes back and forth like this, it's yes. Show me no. Goes round and round is no. Show me you're ready to work. It goes side to side. It means it's ready to work. I've connected and I am protected. And every once in a while, it does this when it doesn't want to answer the question, or it's none of our business, or it hasn't been determined yet. So here we go. Let's get started, shall we? For those, the first question is with regard to Danielle Smith. She is the premier here of Alberta. The teachers are on strike because because it's ridiculous. They're underfunded, they're underpaid, they don't have anywhere near the amount of support they need in their classrooms. So she's really on the one hand she's pushing the development of the oil sands and pipelines and setting aside the whole environmental thing. It is a good thing for Alberta, if you will. I've said it before, Alberta is like the Texas of the North. Um, but the teachers have a tremendous amount of support, so she's sort of juggling these two hot potatoes. And frankly, she's not really doing a great job with either one of them. The question is, will Danielle Smith be in office next year? It's like a couple more years until the election. Is Danielle Smith going to be in office next year? Lord help us. As of right now, it is a yes. Will Polyev, who is um, I get the leader of the federal conservative party, if you will. He lost his riding. He had to run in another really, really, really blue riding, which is the color for conservatives out here, um, to get reelected. Um, but there is an election coming up where he will officially be reelected or elected as the leader of the conservative party. Is that going to happen? Yeah, absolutely. This guy has nothing to say unless it is critical, negative, sarcastic, and oftentimes ill informed. But, life goes on. Ex FBI Director Comey was charged with making false statements to lawmakers. Question: have members of Trump's cabinet lied under oath? Okay, yes. Really, the question should be almost like, with every breath they take, do they lie? But, that's my opinion. Will a good number of Republicans leave office or be charged with crimes should justice catch up with 45? All right, let's break that down a little bit. Are more Republicans than we know of right now? Are they likely to leave office before the midterms if they come up for re-election in the House, um, or between now and the next national federal election? Are there gonna be more of them that leave? Yes. A lot of them are really, really in the hot seat. They are getting a lot of pushback, a lot of stress, and rumor has it that they're not happy with finding themselves basically in that position. Um, Okay. Will they be charged? Will some of them be charged with crimes? Particularly, I'm going to paraphrase, particularly those connected to behavior of 45. Yes. At some point in the next, this is a really interesting question. At some point in the next 10 years, will the Heritage Foundation be labeled an anti American organization and their power be ended or greatly diminished? Fascinating question. Okay. So in the next 10 years, is the Heritage Foundation, I'm going to break it down a little bit. Is the Heritage Foundation going to experience a decline? Yes. Is the Heritage Foundation going to be labeled anti American? Okay, and there's your answer, right? It doesn't the it's not answering. I think at this point, the answer hasn't been determined energetically. Um, okay, so yes, it's going to be declined. They're going to lose a lot of their power. And, part of what's going to happen is more and more people are just going to sort of look at this and say, you know what? Your time, the time for these kinds of attitudes and behaviors and ideas is long past. And you're not going to carry them forward. Um, it's simply not acceptable. The way you think, the ideas about power and money and women and the law, and who's privileged and who is not. All of that is not working as as the world moves forward to a more inclusive kind of being, a way of being. Will 45 continue his fight against birthright citizenship? Yep. As of right now, he sure will. It's amazing to me in many ways how incredibly uninformed a lot of the people who follow him are. They just have no sort of knowledge. And if you talk to them and you try to pinpoint, you try to narrow it down and say, okay, what specifically has, he done that you're impressed with? And they don't have an answer. Um, they just are mush brain. And it's just like they just support him. And at this point, I think the vast majority of them do not even know why. Is Trump's deployment of the National Guard around the U.S. an underhanded way of setting up his plan for martial law? Okay, yes. Obvious next question. Is it going to work? No. Ultimately, are the courts going to slow his roll on that? Yes. Okay. Do a majority of Republicans think that the Democrats have caused the government shutdown? A majority of Republicans, do they think that? No. Nope, 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 they do not. And again, all you have to say is, okay, wait a minute, they've got all three branches of government. How is it that they can't govern? Um, there's nobody who can oppose them, basically. How is it they can't get stuff done? So yeah, even Republicans, I think more and more Republicans are honestly getting very frustrated because you know what? They're starting to feel the pain of his stupidity. They're losing jobs. The cost of everything is going up. And in his head, as long as money comes in, it's a good thing. Which is why he keeps talking about all the, trillions of dollars that nobody can seem to find. But that he says are coming in from the tariffs. Um, Does he understand, I think, let's ask, does he actually understand finally that the tariffs are being paid for by the people of the country? Okay, yeah, he does. He gets that. Does he care that Americans are being hurt and harmed by these outrageous tariff policies? Does he care? No, he doesn't. Okay. Will the shutdown last another week? Okay, so that would take us to, we'll call this October 10th. So let's by the 18th, Saturday, October 18th. Um, will the shutdown last another full week from tomorrow? Okay, as you can see, it is a yes, but it is sort of a slow, sluggish yes. I think that you're going to start to see some push, some movement. The more it become Republicans become aware of the fact that nobody believes this is the Democrats' fault, and they are receiving the static and the blowback. I think you're going to see a push going forward. Will the construction of the new White House ballroom, oh Lord, be completed by the end of Trump's term in 2029? Will that thing actually get completed? No, it will not. If not, will it be due to chaos and pandemonium breaking out at the White House? That's a no. It's a slow no, but it's a no. What I'm getting is that when there is this change, if you will, of leadership, um, that project is going to quietly just be put to the side. Will the group Election Truth Alliance, I don't know who these people are, be instrumental in exposing the election fraud of 2024 presidential election? Okay. This is sort of my question, though. Even if it is proven that there was flat out fraud, as of right now with the current government makeup, will there actually be any sort of significant push to correct? No answer. So, on the Constitution, I'm not actually sure what provisions there are or are not for that. But I don't know. In this day and age, is anything ever completely proven? Because there are so many people who, at this point, will not even agree that 2 plus 2 is 4. Um, and that's part of the problem, right? Is energetically, there's just so much misinformation and bad information, and honestly, lack of intellectual reasoning going on, that for a lot of people, if it doesn't suit the narrative that rolls around in your head, they simply don't want to hear it. Um, so that'd be interesting. Will the retirement age for the United States ever be lowered? No. And will it continue to increase? As of right now, that's a yes. Um, I actually don't know what the retirement age is in the United States. Um, but is is it how do I want to ask this? Is there going to be enough sort of financial stability at some point going forward in the United States that people will have at least the option of retiring early without losing significant retirement benefits? And somewhere down the line, is there going to be sort of a carve out? Yeah. Okay. Honestly, part of it, I think, is that, um, we're living so much longer. And for the most part, I mean, look around, look at somebody who's 65 and 70, and they're in great shape. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They've still got a ton of energy. Their brains are functioning. They're, relatively in good physical shape. Um, and so part of it is that they're still capable of working, and you want to be very mindful that you don't completely drain the workforce of the people who have experience, because, well, just look at your White House and find out what happens when you take away people who know what the hell they're doing and put in people who are novice. And so that's also going to be, I think, part of the calculation there. um so will Virginia Guffrey's book coming out be taken seriously? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it will. And will the book contain some bombshells? Yes, it will. I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of, right, is there's so much focus on Trump and what he did or didn't do and how often he went there or didn't go out, whatever. But there are all kinds of sort of leaders of worlds of industry, whose names are going to start surfacing. And I think that that is going to create quite a shakeup. And more, um, people are going to be less and less tolerant of having people who indulged in that behavior in positions of power and strength. Now, if you're in positions of power and strength, it's not exactly going to be easy to unroot them. But I think what you're going to find is there's just less tolerance for it, broadly speaking. Not if you're a fan of Trump. Will Ghislaine Maxwell be pardoned before the Epstein files are released? So this is a really interesting question, because you sort of instinctively think, well, yeah, of course, yeah, she's going to be, because that's what Trump does. The problem is that if she's pardoned, don't forget that when you're pardoned, it is an acknowledgement of your guilt. So if she's pardoned, she can actually talk quite freely about what went on, because you can't be charged with the same crime, like twice, I think, or you can't be found. Yeah, you can't be charged with the same crime twice. I think that's how it works. In any case, the point is that if they pardon her too fast, um, what is going to prevent her from writing her own book, doing the talk show circuit? Um, I think they're going to need to be very mindful of the timing of that, because, in my humble opinion, she lied once. And but if she's not in jail anymore and they can't come after her again for the same charges, maybe she'll start talking about the truth. Will Ghislaine Maxwell be pardoned before the Epstein files are released? Got to know. Okay. Will 45 live long enough to see the results of his big ugly bill? Ooh, no answer there. The 45 has passed. Will the GOP try to repel the big ugly bill? Okay, that's a little yes. I'm going to rephrase that. If 45 is no longer in the picture, will that bill get repealed? Yeah. Is it going to be the Democrats that push that? Mhm. And will there be significant Republicans that join in? And that's a yes. Alrighty. Donald Trump seemed to be strung out on Newsmax, yelling about Fox News recently. Was Donald Trump on illegal drugs? Could could Don Jr.'s alleged behavior, be the result of some sort of alleged chemical reaction. Yes. For entertainment purposes only, people. Was the big beautiful bill written before the 2024 election? Yes. Okay, wait a minute. Was the outline of it or the premise of it already established and set out by the Heritage Foundation? Yes. And you know what? It was out there, right? And people who were really frightened of Trump getting back into office knew it was out there. It was unfortunately just the ones who, in many, many ways, are going to be the most harshly impacted who didn't know because they weren't listening and they weren't paying attention because they were in cult mentality. Did the OEBB, God, I wish I knew what that was, include as many of the Big Beautiful Bill, sorry, um, many of Project 2025 objectives as possible? Yeah, of course it did. Pendulum agrees, yes. Does Biden regret withdrawing from the presidential race? Okay, it's a yes, but what they're telling me is that um he is mindful of the fact that his health would not have most likely allowed him to complete that second term. And this was something that a lot of us talked about, right? Like he's going to win the election, he's going to be in office for a while. Kamala Harris is going to take over the office, and that's how you get your first female president. Um, but I think at this point, he also has um, an awareness of that, maybe. Does Biden regret appointing Merrick Garland? No answer. Does Biden wish that Merrick Garland had been faster and more aggressive? That's a yes. Will the public ever see Jack Smith's files? Okay, I'm getting a yes. Apparently, they can't find any prosecutors who actually want prosecute him. Um, if this trial goes forward, my question, if this trial goes forward, are some of those files going to be part of discovery? Bingo, yes. Will we learn about cell phone conversations between Trump and other lawmakers on January 6th, 2021, from the Jack Smith files? That's a yes. Hold on, sorry, I got distracted. As of right now, Letitia James, New York Attorney General and Trump foe, has been indicted for bank fraud. But apparently, um, from what I understand, the person who was doing the investigation said they couldn't find any evidence of bank fraud. So there you go. I think going back to this question about cell phone conversations, I think that we're also going to find out that there were a lot more um, conversations that went on right around the time of the election and a lot more pressure that was exerted on governors, etc. Um, then we realized, is that accurate, Pendulum? Yes. Trump is to have a routine medical checkup on Friday, so today, tomorrow, because you're seeing it on the 10th, 6 months after his annual physical at Walter Reed. He is also planning to go to the Middle East on Sunday after the negotiation between Israel and Hamas to release hostages held in Gaza. All right, let's break that down a little bit. Is there something that the doctors are monitoring or are aware of or are concerned that is creating the need for a second a routine medical exam? Is there something they're monitoring or watching? Okay, that's yes. Will that prevent him from his planned trip to the Middle East? Will that prevent him from going? Okay, no. Next question is, will he go to the Middle East? Yes. The next question is, or will findings of the exam prevent him? Nothing's going to prevent him from going if he wants to go, short of um, a completely incapacitating stroke or death. Okay, like he's not gonna not go if he can possibly go, because this is one of his parent crowning achievements. Apparently the bookies, I don't know what bookies from where, but apparently the bookies are giving Trump a 2 point likelihood of getting the Nobel Prize. On Thursday at lunch, Trump announced a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. Hostages are to be released early next week. Is he still trying to win the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, of course he is. Yeah. He is tied at the bottom with 2 points with that girl. What's her name? The girl from wherever who runs around the planet dealing with environmental issues. She's like, I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. She also has 2 points. She's right there with Trump. There is nobody lower than those two. The Nobel Peace Prize will be announced tomorrow. Will he win? No. If he does not, will the committee create a special award for him? No. My question. If it is success, if the peace deal is actually successful, will he be more likely to be considered for the Nobel Prize next year? Even that's a no. Alrighty, there we have it, people. Joyce, thank you so very, very much for again compiling all these amazing questions that we get sent by all of my amazing viewers here in the Soulprint community. Thank you so much for being here. Um, it's the weekend. And I imagine it's going to be a little bit of a wild one with the Nobel Prize thing and the whole going to Gaza thing. So there should be a lot going on. Um, for those of you who may have missed videos on Monday and Wednesday, I did an in-depth look at 45, see how he's doing, what's going on with him. The one on Monday was a tarot reading. The one on Wednesday was a direct channeling, and it was a deeper direct channeling than sometimes you'll typically see. And I thought personally that there was some really interesting information in both of them. But um, while I was doing, I think it was the first one, I mentioned that I really needed to get a hold of Kathy Beal because I keep saying, from now through the end of the year, October is going to be really bad, and then the end of the year, and then into the first couple of weeks of January, things are just going to be really, really difficult for 45. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I wanted to know if astrologically that um, connected, if astrologically that also made sense. Um, Quite ironically, we are going to be recording as if everything goes well. We're going to be recording that video on the 21st of October, which of course is the same day that the Guthrie book comes out. And there's astrological stuff happening. And bless her sweet soul, she told me what it was, and I forgot. But so, having said that, mark your calendars because the Kathy Beal visit will be released. You're going to be seeing it the next day on October 22nd. So mark your calendars. I know you guys all really, really enjoy her. She keeps it plain and simple, and we don't get lost in a lot of technical jargon. Um, and so, as I said, mark your calendars. All right, it's Friday. Um, Take care of yourself, be well, and do something good for yourself and someone else. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here. Bye bye.